The first time Elena Chen heard the desperate, high-pitched cries cutting through the crisp morning air of the rural Oregon countryside, she thought it might be a child in distress, calling from somewhere near the old farm pond that bordered her property. The sound that made her stop her morning coffee preparation and step onto her wraparound porch wasn't the usual chorus of birdsong and gentle lowing of cattle that had accompanied her quiet mornings for the past 8 years, since moving to this peaceful corner of Yamhill County. It was something raw, something filled with terror and exhaustion that pierced through the dawn mist like a blade of pure anguish. Her experienced ears, trained from years as a veterinary technician before her retirement, tracked toward the marshy edges of the pond where the sound seemed to originate. And there, barely visible through the morning fog, she could make out what appeared to be a small form struggling frantically in the thick, clinging mud that surrounded the water's edge during Oregon's rainy season. In that suspended moment between recognition and action, Sarah felt the familiar weight of choice settle in her chest. The decision between immediate intervention and calling for professional help that every animal lover faces when confronted with wildlife in desperate distress. What she couldn't know then was that this single moment would become the catalyst for one of the most extraordinary rescue operations she'd ever witnessed, binding together a family of wild bobcats, dedicated wildlife rescuers, and rural neighbors in a connection that would demonstrate the profound compassion that exists when humans choose to bridge the gap between civilization and the natural world. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Elena Chen had been living on her 20-acre property in rural Oregon for 8 years, but she'd never encountered anything quite like the heart-wrenching scene that greeted her in the early hours of that October morning. The 58-year-old retired veterinary technician had seen her share of animal emergencies during her 30-year career, but the sight of what she quickly realized was a young bobcat trapped in the treacherous mud surrounding her farm pond triggered both her professional instincts and a deep maternal concern for the helpless creature struggling for its life. The October mornings in Oregon's Yamhill County had turned unexpectedly wet, transforming the usually firm banks around Sarah's pond into a deceptively dangerous quagmire of thick, sucking mud that could trap even experienced wild animals who ventured too close to the water's edge. As someone who had spent 3 decades working with distressed animals in veterinary clinics throughout the Pacific Northwest, Sarah had developed an eye for recognizing when immediate intervention could mean the difference between life and death for creatures who couldn't ask for help. What she hadn't expected was to find herself face to face with a young bobcat, clearly not yet fully grown, caught in what appeared to be nature's own cruel trap. The kitten's small but powerful body was mired in mud so thick and adhesive that every struggle seemed to pull it deeper into the muck, creating a nightmarish situation where the animal's natural survival instincts were actually hastening its doom. The bobcat's tawny coat was completely saturated with the dark, organic mud from the pond's edge, making its normally camouflaged form starkly visible against the gray morning landscape. But it wasn't just the physical entrapment that posed an immediate threat. It was the kitten's obvious exhaustion from what must have been hours of desperate struggle, and the way its small chest heaved with labored breathing, indicating that panic and energy depletion were becoming critical factors in its survival. Bright amber eyes, wide with terror and confusion, tracked Elena's movement as she approached the pond's edge, but there was something heartbreaking about the young animal's obvious desperation. Its ears were pinned back against its skull in a display of fear, but its attempts to escape had become progressively weaker with each passing minute, and Sarah could see that without immediate intervention, this magnificent creature would not survive much longer in its muddy prison. "Oh, sweetheart," Elena whispered, her voice carrying the same gentle authority she'd learned to use with frightened animals during countless emergency situations throughout her veterinary career. "How long have you been stuck out there?" But even as Alina assessed the trapped bobcat's dire situation, she became aware of movement in the nearby brush that made her realize this rescue would be far more complex than she'd initially understood. Through the morning mist, she could see two larger forms pacing frantically along the pond's perimeter. Adult bobcats whose agitated behavior and continuous vocalizations made it clear that they were the trapped kitten's family members. The mother bobcat, a magnificent female with a powerful build and alert posture of an experienced predator, was calling continuously to her trapped offspring with soft growls and anxious yowls that conveyed both encouragement and desperate concern. Beside her, a slightly smaller bobcat, likely an older sibling from a previous litter, mirrored the mother's frantic pacing, occasionally venturing closer to the mud's edge in futile attempts to reach the struggling kitten. Alina watched in amazement as the two adult bobcats demonstrated behavior that challenged everything most people believed about wild predators. These weren't just animals acting on instinct. They were family members engaged in a coordinated rescue effort, using intelligence and emotional bonds that transcended species boundaries. The mother had even attempted to enter the shallow edges of the pond herself, only to retreat when she realized that her larger size would make her vulnerable to the same trap that held her young one. "They've been trying to save him all night," Alina realized, her heart breaking as she witnessed the profound bond between the bobcat family members and their helpless determination to free their trapped relative. Alina had dealt with wildlife emergencies throughout her career as a veterinary technician, but approaching a situation involving multiple wild predators presented unique challenges that required careful planning and professional expertise. The trapped kitten was clearly in severe distress and likely terrified, but the presence of protective adult bobcats made any rescue attempt extremely dangerous for untrained individuals. But there was something in those amber eyes, both the kitten's desperate gaze and the pleading looks from the adult bobcats, that reminded Alina of the most critical emergency situations she'd encountered during her veterinary career. This wasn't just an injured animal. This was a family in crisis, with every passing minute bringing the trapped youngster closer to death from exhaustion, hypothermia, or drowning. Moving carefully to avoid startling the watchful adult bobcats, Alina retreated to her house and immediately called the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Emergency Hotline, knowing that freeing a trapped bobcat would require specialized equipment and expertise that only trained wildlife rescuers possessed. "I have a juvenile bobcat trapped in mud on my property," Alina reported to the emergency dispatcher. "It's been struggling for hours, and there are adult bobcats standing guard. This is a critical situation that needs immediate professional response." The dispatcher assured Alina that a wildlife rescue team from the nearby Cascade Wildlife Veterinary Clinic would be dispatched immediately, but Alina knew that every minute counted in situations like this. Returning to her observation post on the porch, she maintained visual contact with the trapped kitten while monitoring the behavior of the protective adults who had positioned themselves as sentries around the pond. The rescue team that arrived 20 minutes later consisted of Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a wildlife veterinarian with 15 years of experience in emergency animal rescue, and Jennifer Walsh, a certified wildlife rehabilitator whose expertise in handling stressed wild predators had made her invaluable in situations exactly like this one. "Ma'am, I'm Dr. Rodriguez." The veterinarian introduced himself as he and Jennifer unloaded specialized rescue equipment from their emergency response vehicle. "Can you show us exactly where the trapped animal is located and describe the behavior of the adult bobcats?" Alina's detailed report of the situation, combined with her professional background in veterinary medicine, provided the rescue team with crucial information about the kitten's condition and the family dynamics they would need to navigate during the rescue operation. The adults have been maintaining a protective perimeter around the pond since dawn, Alina explained as they approached the water's edge. They're clearly distressed, but haven't shown any aggressive behavior toward humans. They seem to understand that their kitten needs help they can't provide. Dr. Rodriguez's initial assessment confirmed Sarah's fears about the severity of the situation. The young bobcat was trapped in mud so deep and adhesive that conventional rescue methods would be insufficient, and the animal's visible exhaustion indicated that time was running critically short. "We need to work fast," Dr. Rodriguez told Jennifer as they prepared their rescue equipment. "That kitten has been fighting for its life for hours, and shock is becoming a major factor in its survival chances." The rescue operation that followed demonstrated the skill and compassion that defined professional wildlife emergency response. Jennifer approached the trapped kitten with specialized boards designed to distribute weight over soft surfaces, while Dr. Rodriguez prepared tranquilizer equipment in case sedation became necessary to prevent additional injury during the extraction process. The adult bobcat's reaction to the human rescuers was exactly what Sarah had hoped for. Instead of attacking or fleeing, the mother and sibling retreated to a safe distance but remained visible, their continuous vocalization seeming to encourage both the trapped kitten and the humans working to free it. "Easy, little one," Jennifer murmured as she positioned herself near the trapped bobcat, her voice carrying the calm authority that came from years of working with frightened wild animals. "We're here to help you get back to your family." Using a combination of specialized tools and careful manual extraction, Jennifer and Dr. Rodriguez began the delicate process of freeing the exhausted kitten from its muddy prison. Each movement had to be precise and gentle, minimizing additional stress while gradually loosening the mud's grip on the small animal's body. The breakthrough came when Jennifer managed to position a rescue board beneath the kitten's body, providing leverage that allowed Dr. Rodriguez to begin lifting the trapped animal from the thick mud that had held it captive. The process was painstakingly slow, requiring constant assessment of the kitten's condition and frequent adjustments to their technique. "Almost there," Dr. Rodriguez called out as the final section of the bobcat's body emerged from the mud. "Jennifer, get the blanket ready. This little guy is going into shock." When the kitten was finally free, its immediate response was exactly what the rescue team had hoped for. Instead of struggling or attempting to flee, the exhausted animal simply lay still, too weak to do anything except breathe heavily while wrapped in the warming blanket Jennifer had prepared. The sight of their freed family member triggered an immediate response from the adult bobcats, who began calling more urgently while moving closer to the rescue site. But rather than approaching the humans directly, they positioned themselves at the edge of the nearby forest, clearly waiting for an opportunity to be reunited with their rescued relative. "He's severely dehydrated and hypothermic, but I don't see any major injuries," Dr. Rodriguez reported as he conducted a preliminary examination of the muddy kitten. "What he needs most right now is warmth, fluids, and a chance to recover from this ordeal." The decision to transport the kitten to their mobile treatment facility was made jointly by Dr. Rodriguez and Jennifer, who recognized that the young animal would need several hours of supportive care before it would be strong enough for release back to its family. "The adults are going to follow us," Jennifer observed as they prepared to load the kitten into their secure transport carrier. "They're not going to abandon their family member, even temporarily." The mobile veterinary unit that Dr. Rodriguez and Jennifer operated from their specially equipped truck was designed for exactly these types of emergency situations. Within minutes of arriving at their temporary treatment location in Sarah's driveway, they had established Roman IV fluid therapy for the dehydrated kitten and begun the warming process that would help reverse the hypothermia caused by hours of exposure in the cold mud. "His vital signs are stabilizing," Dr. Rodriguez reported as he monitored the kitten's response to treatment. Young animals are remarkably resilient, and I think he's going to make a full recovery. But the most remarkable aspect of the entire rescue operation was yet to unfold. Throughout the kitten's treatment and recovery period, the adult bobcats maintained their vigil in the nearby forest, their periodic vocalizations serving as a constant reminder that this wasn't just an individual animal in distress. It was a family temporarily separated by circumstances beyond their control. After 6 hours of intensive supportive care, Dr. Rodriguez declared the young bobcat ready for release back to its family. The animal had not only recovered from the immediate effects of its ordeal, but had regained the alertness and energy that indicated its survival instincts were fully engaged. "He's ready to go home," Dr. Rodriguez announced as they prepared the release carrier. "Let's see if his family is still waiting for him." The release location was chosen carefully, close enough to where the adult bobcats had been observed, but in an area that provided immediate cover and escape routes for the entire family once they were reunited. Alina watched from her porch as Dr. Rodriguez and Jennifer positioned the carrier near the forest edge and prepared to open it. When the carrier door was opened, the young bobcat emerged with the caution expected from a wild animal assessing unfamiliar territory after a traumatic experience. For several minutes, the kitten remained near the carrier, its bright eyes scanning the forest environment while its nose worked to identify familiar scents. Then something extraordinary happened that none of the observers, Sarah, Dr. Rodriguez, or Jennifer, could have anticipated based on their previous experience with wild animal releases. From the depths of the forest came the unmistakable sounds of the adult bobcats calling to their rescued family member, and the kitten's immediate response was a joyful chirping vocalization that seemed to communicate both relief and recognition. Instead of cautiously exploring its surroundings as most released animals do, the young bobcat bounded directly toward the source of the familiar calls. "Look," Alina whispered, pointing toward the forest edge where 2 magnificent adult bobcats had emerged from the underbrush, their postures indicating excitement and relief rather than caution or aggression. The reunion that followed was one of the most touching displays of animal emotion and family bonding that any of the human observers had ever witnessed. The mother bobcat immediately began grooming her rescued offspring, licking away the remaining traces of mud while making soft vocalizations that seemed to communicate both relief and concern. The older sibling joined in the reunion, nuzzling and scent-marking the returned family member in behaviors that clearly indicated joy and acceptance. "Perfect," Jennifer said with satisfaction and wonder in her voice. "I've been doing wildlife rehabilitation for 18 years, and I've never seen a family reunion quite like that one." But the most remarkable moment was yet to come. Before disappearing into the forest with their rescued family member, the mother bobcat turned toward the group of humans who had made the reunion possible and maintained direct eye contact for several long seconds in what could only be described as acknowledgement and gratitude. "She knows," Alina said softly, her voice thick with emotion she hadn't expected to feel. "She understands that we helped save her baby." Then, as if the message had been delivered and understood, the bobcat family turned toward the deeper forest and disappeared into the wilderness, with a fluid grace that reminded everyone present why these animals were such successful and beautiful predators. Follow-up monitoring over the next several weeks confirmed that the rescued kitten had successfully reintegrated with its family and was exhibiting all the natural behaviors that indicated complete recovery from its traumatic experience. Alina's trail cameras occasionally captured images of the bobcat family hunting, playing, and patrolling their territory, with the rescued kitten showing no lasting effects from its ordeal in the mud. But the most meaningful confirmation of the rescue's success came when Alina, during her regular evening walks around her property, would occasionally spot the distinctive markings and movement patterns that told her the young bobcat she'd helped save was not just surviving, but thriving in the natural environment she was privileged to share. The wooden sign Alina had placed near the pond where the rescue had taken place reads simply, "Wildlife habitat, please respect and protect." It was both a reminder to visitors about the importance of coexisting with wild neighbors and a memorial to the extraordinary day when human compassion and professional expertise had combined to save a life and reunite a family. Years later, when visitors asked Alina about the most memorable experience of living in rural Oregon, she would tell the Bobcat family's story, not just as an example of successful wildlife rescue, but as a reminder that the bonds between humans and wild animals could create moments of profound connection when people chose to act with compassion and respect for the natural world. She'd learned that protecting wildlife required not just good intentions, but professional expertise, proper equipment, and the wisdom to know when situations required trained intervention rather than well-meaning amateur efforts. But she'd also learned that sometimes, when faced with a creature in desperate need, the choice to reach out for help and provide support during a crisis could create connections that transcended species boundaries and touched the deepest parts of human compassion. The young bobcat had taught everyone involved that wild animals were not just representatives of their species, but individuals with families, emotions, and the capacity to recognize help when it was offered with genuine respect and understanding. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. The property where Alina continued to live remained a haven for wildlife, but the Bobcat Rescue had influenced how she approached her role as a rural neighbor to the wild creatures who shared her land. New water sources were established in safer locations. Additional trail cameras were installed to monitor wildlife activity, and Alina had developed relationships with local wildlife rehabilitators that ensured quick professional response to future emergencies. Most importantly, the young bobcat's rescue and the family reunion it enabled had demonstrated that human intervention in wildlife crises could create positive outcomes when guided by professional expertise, genuine respect for wild animals, and understanding of the complex family relationships that existed in the natural world. The moment of gratitude the mother bobcat had expressed before leading her family back into the forest remained the most powerful experience of Alina's retirement, demonstrating that compassion and proper professional assistance could combine to create outcomes that benefited both individual animals and broader conservation efforts. Their story had inspired others as well, becoming part of educational programs at local schools and environmental groups, illustrating the positive impact that quick thinking, professional wildlife services, and genuine respect for wild animals could have on species conservation and human-wildlife coexistence. The farm where Alina lived displayed photographs from the Bobcat Rescue, serving as reminders that individual commitment to wildlife protection, combined with professional expertise and community support, could create extraordinary outcomes when people chose to act with both courage and wisdom. In the end, the young bobcat who had been found dying in the mud had become a symbol of resilience, the importance of professional wildlife services, and the profound connections that could form when humans chose to bridge the gap between civilization and the natural world with respect, compassion, and the understanding that sometimes the most meaningful victories were measured not in human terms, but in the successful reunion of a wild family and the continuation of ancient bonds that connected all living creatures. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.